Well, that's Sir Paul McCartney, who's playing the Marcus Amphitheater, a sold-out show at Summerfest on July 8th. Definitely the big headliner of the year, but there's lots of great headliners to talk about, and some headliner missed opportunities to talk about, too. And I'm here with Katie O'Connell, music editor for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Tyrone DJ Bazan Miller, who is co-author of those Hip Hop Guys blog for tapmilwaukee.com, and John M. Gilbertson, who's been a veteran music writer for us for many, many, many moons. So thank you guys very much for joining us.
Of course.
So yeah, let's talk about that lineup. You know, we've got everyone from Sir Paul McCartney to Sir Mix-a-Lot. Katie, what do you think? Good, bad? What's your thoughts?
You know what? I would say it's good, but inconsistent.
Okay.
So you have someone like Paul McCartney, who's a heavyweight. It's
Yeah.
an impressive get for them. And the last time that he played in Milwaukee at Miller Park, I was there. And I thought it was an incredible
Yeah,
show.
it was.
I was a little worried because I was a fan of his when I was a kid, and I have these memories with my brother. We're dancing to Hard Day's Night, but it was a great show, and he still has that energy. So I'm excited for that one. But at the same time, you have this weird balance where you have Blink-182, which felt like a last-minute filler, and maybe not a band that at this moment would deserve that kind of slot. So I think it's good. I think that there are opportunities for people with different interests in music, maybe with the exception of a strong hip hop headliner. But I'm excited to see what they can use Paul McCartney for next year too.
Yeah, hopefully they can maybe attract some people they didn't get, and things that they missed out on this year, they can be stronger next year. You mentioned hip hop, and I'd love to talk to you, Tyrone, about this too, because from Summerfest in recent years has had some really good gets. With Kendrick Lamar last year, they had Outkast when they reunited. They had Kanye West, Wiz Khalifa when he was blowing up. This year, it's the Roots and Common basically, and Nelly if you want to count Nelly, and Pitbull if you want to count Pitbull.
Right.
I think it's a pretty weak, inexcusably weak hip hop lineup.
I mean, I would have to agree because there's so many artists out here who are blowing up. Younger, for the younger hip hop fan, and that's what I think is missing. So all the young people I know or who talk to about the music scene, about hip hop, they're like, there's no point in us going. Like we don't see anything that represents us. So you think about people like Anderson .Paak, the internet, even J. Cole, Chance the Rapper, all of these names that are just obvious out there that are just not. So I think for them, the hip hop, booking was like, let's get for the older fans, the older hip hop fans, and I'm sure they'll come out, but for the younger hip hop fan that is looking for something to do, I think there's really not much for them.
No, there isn't. I mean, last year and for a few years, they've had the Rhymesayers stage, which is that label from Minneapolis, and they had it was a packed stage all day long. A lot of young hip hop fans that were there. Right. That's not back there this year too. That's also a major blow.
I really, there's really no excuse, but I'm sure, they plan out how they want to plan it and make their choices. So what can you do?
One part of the lineup that I think is stronger this year is the country lineup, John. You've got the U.S. Cellular Connection stage, which has been largely an alternative rock stage. Now is kind of the home for emerging country artists like Cam.
Yeah,
and at the same time, you have Willie Nelson. You have Luke Bryan, who's playing a sold-out show at the Marcus. What are your thoughts about country? What's going on
I think
here?
I think it's actually a pretty good, if you like whatever kind of country you like, because there are so many divisions there now. If you like your alt country, you've got some of that with guys like Ryan Adams. If you like the emerging stuff, yes, as you mentioned, Cam. If you like people who are sort of in that borderline, you got someone like Tim McGraw. He could sort of be halfway between Willie Nelson and Cam easily. I mean, probably is an age. Willie, of course, is a perennial.
Yeah.
I mean, just a guy who, generally speaking, you can rely on him to be at least a 3-star show kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be a big draw just because he's one of the last in the way of that whole outlaw generation.
For sure, and Chris Christopherson's opening for him.
Which again, who's also, he was never in strong voice, but he's in strong form as a writer and a performer.
And we can't forget Chris Stapleton, who's playing on the Marcus Amphitheater.
He's especially, another one of those, another neo-Nashville guy who's emerged, and it certainly has been an excellent, a very interesting year for country, and I've got a couple of things from that list that are on my list of the ones to watch for.
For sure. Stapleton is playing the Marcus Amphitheater on July 2nd, and he's co-headlining with Alabama Shakes, which is one of my personal picks for acts to see this year. It's kind of an interesting billing because they don't really go together.
And to your point, I mean, there's obviously been, it hasn't become a huge thing, but there's been that easy crossover between hip hop and neo Nashville and borough country, as they've said lately. I mean, why not use that a little bit? I mean, you could easily have used that a bit more than they did. So, I mean, they could have. It's not as if the idea that there's some group of audiences that couldn't possibly intermix is nonsense. I mean, it could have strengthened both lineups. In other words.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting pairing to see, and it's one of many headliner things I'm looking forward to. I like that. There are some big acts from Wisconsin who are headlining ground stages.
Yes.
Garbage is headlining, Skillet is headlining. One I'm really looking forward to is the Violent Femmes, which are headlining on July 7th. And they released an album, their first full-length album in 16 years, We Can Do Anything, which I think is a really good album. It's kind of a return to form for them.
Actually, I think the same is true of the Garbage record. Is actually surprisingly strong. It's not a departure, but they're doing what they're doing in a very sharp way that they haven't done for a while.
Sure. So what are some headliner picks for you guys? We'll start with you, Katie. What's something that we should see?
Okay, so I'm not going to say that Pitbull creates great music in terms of what he's, might not be described as legendary, but there was one year I got free 6th-row tickets to see him, and you know what? It was fun.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if you want to go to Summerfest and you want something that combines both entertainment and music, that's a good route to go.
Sure.
Most of Pitbull's songs are featuring someone else, so there's a lot of videos going on with J-Lo and whoever else, but it is just simple fun. So if you want that, go for it. Also, Modest Yahoo, who's becoming a little bit of a staple for this. I'm someone who finds things that are supposedly inspirational to be a little bit gauche, or they rub me the wrong way.
Okay.
But I think that Modest Yahoo does a good job with balancing music that can actually uplift people in a manner that speaks to them, no matter who you are.
Yeah, no one's doing Judaism and hip hop and reggae.
Exactly, exactly. And he's, I got to interview him. He's a great guy. Yeah. It's just an overall pick for me.
So Tyrone, I know you said it's a pretty weak lineup. Headliners that stand out to you, though?
For me, I would say the two that I'm interested in seeing would be Mayor Hawthorne and Morris Day. Obviously, with Prince passing, Morris Day, I'm interested to see how him and the band do it. What they have planned. And Mayor Hawthorne is this great, funk, neo soul kind of sound. And so, not only with the hip hop, I would like to see more. I mean, can we get some more neo soul and R&B at Summerfest? I mean, D'Angelo just released one of the greatest albums of all time. So like that. So that's why I'm kind of reaching for that Mayor Hawthorne, because I love Mayor Hawthorne, what he's doing with Jake One and Tuxedo. So got to see that.
And John, headliner picks?
Well, actually, I cheated slightly with Casey Musgraves is opening for Tim McGraw, but obviously she's done plenty of headlining herself. Grammy winner from the same section of Texas that gave us Miranda Lambert. A little too. Can lean a little bit too much on I'm Just a Simple Country Girl stuff, but the music surpasses that.
Yeah.
The music sort of surpasses that attitude, and certainly I saw her in March, and I have to say, a very solid show, very entertaining, and a little goofy, and so a little bit more of that, even a little bit of Grand Ole Opry mixed in with the sort of modern stuff, which I appreciated, and a good band, which helped. And as far as the other one, that's alt country, sort of, although it's Ryan Adams.
Yeah.
Ryan Adams is there, and I will say that with him, admittedly, he can be frustrating, but he has been in really good form in the last couple of years. Last year, he did do that
Taylor Swift cover album.
Yes, 1989, which led some people to draw too many parallels between them, which, whatever else Ryan Adams has done in his long career with Whiskeytown and solo and country and folk and replacement style rock and roll and all that stuff, he never gave the world Shake It Off, so I think he gets the edge on this.
There you go.
And I like his version better, because I can barely understand it.
Yeah,
so
T-Swift's a fan, so there you go. That's all you have to say for that. We have so much more Summerfest coverage and much more coming up on the Summerfest show. We're going to be talking next about local acts playing Summerfest, so keep watching. That's Milwaukee synth pop band Gold, which will be opening for Passion Pits on the Miller Lite Oasis stage on June 30th at Summerfest. I'm here to talk about local bands playing Summerfest with Jordan Lee, program director from 88.9 Radio Milwaukee. Thanks, Jordan, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Piet.
So, obviously Gold playing Summerfest, that's kind of a no-brainer, and
Absolutely.
it's a good, it's a good pairing with them with Passion Pit. What's interesting though about this year compared with recent years is there are fewer local band opportunities at Summerfest for a key reason.
Right, if you look at the total number of Milwaukee area bands performing, the number is down dramatically. And that key reason is the loss of the local stage. The all-local stage, which has gone through different versions, it has evolved. You know, you had MSC involved at the beginnings of it, then K&E kind of owning last year a really big footprint on the grounds, which now this year we don't have.
Right, K&E is, for those who don't know, has dropped out as the sponsor of this local music stage. It was really a philanthropic endeavor, and it was an opportunity for local bands, a lot of beginner local bands that kind of graduate up to Summerfest to get their foot in the door, and some of those bands that headline that stage would go on to the bigger stages. So with it gone, you know, Summerfest vowed that they would try to add more slots, and they're clearly, the Summerfest lineup, you know, for having 800 plus bands, a vast majority are still from Milwaukee. But it's still a loss, but there are still a lot of good opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, Summerfest has always been the people's festival. So by definition, the daytime and even getting into late in the evening, you always have seen great local bands. This year, I'm really impressed that there have been some pairings that I think were particularly smart and are things that you would expect if these artists weren't from Milwaukee.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, let me give you an example. So Martin Garrix is performing, and he's on June 29th.
Yep, opening night. Huge EDM superstar.
Right, so if you're not familiar with Martin, as far as outdoor electronic festivals go, he is a headliner's headliner.
Yeah.
But then you have Antics, a Milwaukee-based duo, and Kings, another Milwaukee-based duo, who are doing their own thing, getting international attention for their brand of electronic music, and they're opening for him. It just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's one of many cases where there are local bands getting those kind of prime 6 and 8 p.m. slots before headliners that work really well together. Another one that really stands out to me is Trapper Shep, a local Americana artist. He's opening for Ray LaMontagne, another Americana artist, nationally known Americana artist, on the Harley-Davidson Roadhouse stage on July 1st. And Trapper, you know, he had his first album a few years ago when he was just 19. It was really impressive, just full of charisma and just really sharp songwriting. And he's dramatically upped the ambition for his latest album, Rangers and Valentines. So he's really earned that 8 p.m. slot.
I mean, just look at that new music video he's put out. He has stepped himself up to a national caliber artist. He's got national players producing and managing what's going on with his career right now. And again, if this wasn't on Milwaukee's lakefront, it would still make sense to have Milwaukee's Trapper Shep opening up for Ray LaMontagne.
Sure. And you know, we talked about in the earlier segment kind of the lack of many hip-hop opportunities at Summerfest. But that said, the big hip-hop draw, The Roots, is going to have a local band opening as well.
And I think a good local band, when you're talking about hip-hop music, it can go either way. And with this particular collective here in Milwaukee, New Age Narcissism, it's kind of like a super band. You've got members who are in hip-hop, members who are in more funk and soul music, members who are into electronic, you have singers and R&B artists, all in this super collective band that performs one of the city's most dynamic live shows. And I think it's a very smart mix to put them right before The Roots, because they're going to bring an energy level up that's just going to make The Roots remember why they love playing on Milwaukee's lakefront.
Yeah, and The Roots is a very eclectic hip-hop band. And individually in New Age Narcissism, you have big names locally, like Webster X, you've got Lex Allen, you've got Siren, Lord Freddie. So to have them all on one stage before The Roots, it's a really sweet opportunity. You've also got an artist, a veteran soul artist, the godfather of Milwaukee soul, Harvey Scales, who's opening for Kool and the Gang on July 7th.
I don't think a lot of folks in Milwaukee always give Harvey the credit that he is owed. He is one of the founding fathers of the Northern Soul sound. And a lot of archivists and, you know, as I like to lovingly say, record nerds have always had an affinity for Harvey's music. But now here in 2016, he's getting a little bit older, and he's had this opportunity to open up for a group who's also getting a little bit older, Kool and the Gang.
Yeah, sure. So it's an opportunity to see him when you can. And then you've also got on July 9th, this is a really cool sandwich pairing where you have Neil Finn, who's playing at 4 o'clock. Ben Folds playing with Y Music, this chamber pop group, at 10. And then in between, some really good pop, really smart pop songwriters with Mike Benign Compulsion and the Woolridge Brothers.
Exactly. Great fit, makes sense, the fans are going to get it, and it's going to be a good sonic pairing. One of the things I'm most excited about is with Femi Kuti coming back, that they decided to have Paul Seabar open for him on the final night of summer.
Yeah, because Seabar is, a Milwaukee music veteran who has a really eclectic world music sound, playing before, the son of a major Afrobeat artist. It's going to be a really good one to end the fest. And there's going to be a lot more local music coverage at jsonline.com/Summerfest throughout the run. So Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Piet.
So that's Jesus on the Main Line, a 12-piece gospel rock band based in New York that's actually fronted by Andrew Neasley, who grew up in Glendale. And, Summerfest has, 800 bands. They can't all be big headliners. And there's a lot of stuff to see that's under the radar or emerging. Here to talk about that now with Katie O'Connell, music editor at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Tyrone DJ Bazan Miller, who co-authors those Hip Hop Guys blog for tapmilwaukee.com, and John M. Gilbertson, music writer for the Journal Sentinel. A lot of interesting stuff to see, to get there early for. One act that stands out to me is the Wild Breeds, which has this three-piece all-female folk group that just has really beautiful voices, and they're just starting to kind of bubble up. NPR is just gushing about this group. Again, people just think, oh, I'll show up to Summerfest at 10. Get there early for that. It's going to be really good stuff. Another act I want to talk to you about, Tyrone, actually, is Black Violin, which we talked about in an earlier segment, how the hip-hop lineup's pretty weak. This isn't exactly hip-hop, but it's classical music by two classically trained violinists who have merged hip-hop into their sound. So that's something different.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very interesting show. So in case you are there, you're just like, I want to check something out, and you are a hip-hop fan, that could be definitely something for you. And obviously, on the DJ side, Mike D is not emerging, but that would be, there are other good DJs to see. So I know some openers that were just announced were E-Rich and YB, some Milwaukee favorites. So they'll be opening doing a 4 turntable set. So that'll be interesting to see. So at least you got some hip-hop and some DJ stuff to see over at Summerfest.
Yeah, for sure. Katie, anything stand out to you as far as under the radar?
Sure. The band Wifey and the Huzz Band, they are great if you really want to ride a wave of nostalgia.
Okay.
So it's a 10-piece band, and they kind of take this 1950s sound and amp it up a little bit.
Okay.
Also, because people from Wisconsin love Wisconsin, they're from Sturgeon Bay.
Okay.
They're playing early on July 1st, and so I think that's something that if people are there, headed into the 4th of July weekend, it'll be a great, really fun show for them to catch.
Yeah, and it is an actual husband and wife team with 8 musician children, as it were. So yeah, cool, very cool. John, stuff that's off the radar to check out?
Both of mine were, strange enough, from Denver, or reside in Denver. One of them is Dressy Bessie, who are playing at 3 p.m. on the 8th at the Blue Line stage. And, kind of a trio, almost what you might call classicist indie rock. It doesn't have a lot to do with what the stuff sounds like now. It's miles away from Mumford or Lumineers or anything that kind of gets in that. It's definitely meant to be at least some simultaneously cute and abrasive, and actually pulls it off, I'd say 90% of the time. They just put out an album called King Size that was really good. And there's the other one is Otis Taylor, who's playing at Johnson Controls on the 3rd. He is playing 8. He's actually played a lot at Summerfest. He's been actually here almost every year. I think it was only a health concern one year maybe. And he's put out, he kind of was a soul guy in the 70s, but wasn't going well for him, so he stopped, did other things. Then in the 21st century came roaring back with something like a dozen albums in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
All of them have been interesting, and he mixes all kinds of blues forms and soul forms, plays banjo, guitar, and has a very ghostly voice that, has seemed to draw people in the past.
Yeah, but not enough people. I agree with you. I mean, Otis Taylor's a name that comes up every year. But I think a lot of people say, I'll skip it because they don't really know it. But again, there's just so many interesting things to kind of check out.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of guidance for you at jsonline.com/Summerfest. I've got a list of 35 acts to see, which ranges from headliners to emerging acts to local acts. We've got the full schedule there at jsonline.com/Summerfest. We've got, Need to Know Guide. We have a ton of stuff. And during the big gig will be the premier place to get your Need to Know coverage and news. So Katie, Tyrone, John, thanks for joining us. And thanks everyone for watching.